Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, June 8th of 2026. Trusting everybody had a chance to look over the agenda package. We'll go to item number 1, call the meeting to order. Is there any added items that council would like to bring forward? Okay, seeing none. Move to item 1.2, adoption of the agenda. Through consensus, is everybody in agreement with the agenda? And that is passed. Thank you very much. Going down to item number 2, adoption of the previous council minutes. So this would be from the May 25th, 2026 meeting. Is there any additions, deletions, or corrections in that minutes that have been set forward? Seeing none, through consensus then, are we all in agreement to move those minutes forward? And that is passed as well. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so item number 3, we move into public hearing for bylaw 2026-13, land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment. And so before we get into the hearing, I would like to read the pecuniary interest for municipal councillors. Section 172 of the MGA says that you may not take part in the discussion or decision-making of any matter in which you have a pecuniary interest. The legislation attempts to assure that you are not discriminated either for or against by virtue of your membership to council. If you have pecuniary interest, you are to disclose that you have an interest and its general nature prior to the discussion. You are to abstain from any discussion of the matter and from voting. You are to leave the room until the matter has been discussed and voting concluded. And you are to make sure that your abstention is recorded in the minutes. You are not to be discriminated against and are entitled to participate in a public hearing as a member of the public. All right, and for those of you that would like to join online, the link is in our agenda package under 3.1. So for those of you that would like to participate in the public hearing. Okay, so at this time, I would like to declare the public hearing for bylaw 2026-13, land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment open at 1:03 p.m. And I will ask the municipal land use planner to explain the purpose and the effect of the proposed bylaw.
The subject for this bylaw is 4606 50th Street. My apologies for not including that in the RFD. This is within the East Olds Area Redevelopment Plan and specifically within the Highway Overlay District of that plan. This overlay district speaks to allowing a mix of residential and commercial uses as well as live-work spaces that allow for both. The parcels located directly to the north and south are already in commercial zoning, while the parcels to the west on the same block are traditional neighborhood or RTD, which is what this parcel currently is. The proposed amendment does align with the area redevelopment plan, as it would allow for those commercial and residential uses to continue. There are no development plans that we've received at this point. It's merely a case of a property owner looking to rezone to something more appropriate for future plans for the property. So that's all I have right now. This was circulated to neighboring property owners, advertised in the newspaper, and on our website, and we haven't received any correspondence regarding this bylaw. And it was given first reading on May 11th, and happy to answer any questions after the public hearing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sloan. As we get into asking for public's presentations here. Presentations before the council shall be brief and to the point, limited to 3 minutes. Council shall not allow cross-examination of persons giving information, and it will not be necessary for persons giving information to verify his or her qualifications. Council may ask questions of speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. No debating or questions from the floor will be allowed. No written or verbal submissions will be received by council after the public hearing is closed. So now I would like to call for people that would like to present to council. First of all, we need you to state your name and your address. Indicate if you are speaking on your own behalf or for a client, company, or citizen group. So with that, I will call for the first time anyone who is in favor of the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation. Do we have anyone in council chambers wanting to come forward for a presentation? Seeing none, do we have any online that is looking to come forward for a presentation? Okay. Go ahead.
No, there's no one online.
No one online? No. Okay. So then I'll call for the second time for anyone in favor of the proposed bylaw to come forward from the council chambers. Okay, seeing none, we'll move down, and I'll call for the first time for anybody opposed to the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation from council chambers. And for the second time, anyone opposed to the proposed bylaw to come forward to make a presentation from council chambers? All right, seeing none, I will then call for the first time anyone deemed affected by the proposed law to come forward and make presentation to council chambers. Go ahead.
Sorry for the additional request. So I'm still not good at public speaking. I will try to keep this to 3 minutes. It's probably going to be closer to 5 minutes. My name's Eric Carlson. I actually wrote this out, so I'm not going to be too rambly. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Eric Carlson. I think everyone knows me by now. I live on 50th Street in East Olds, and I'm speaking because this bylaw affects my neighborhood. 4606 50th Street is specifically identified as a historical place of interest in the East Olds area ARP, and it shouldn't be treated as just another rezoning. The town has stated that this property is something worth caring about. The new land use bylaw doesn't include the previous East Olds protections, and I think the council needs to make sure this property is protected. And sorry, this isn't written down, but I did speak to the landowner, and yeah, Kyle's right. He did request it, and that's a-okay. I'm not asking you to go against his will. And he did state he is not planning on doing anything with it. He wants it for if he sells the property, so it's on the title. So I'm asking council today to please not pass this rezoning as is. Please direct administration to come back with a preservation option for 4606 50th Street, an option that gives the owner flexibility but keeps the house, the mature trees, the character of the street, and the community intact. And it might be asking too much, but if we could bring up a street view of this house, it is specifically in the East Olds redevelopment plan as a place of interest, and it is a beautiful little house. I've read a lot of the East Olds Area Redevelopment Plan, and if council hasn't read it recently, you should. It is a fantastic document. Like, it's a great ARP. The old land use bylaw in the East Olds ARP has protections for the east side of Olds. It seems like they were written by people who lived here, cared about our town, and wanted East Olds to keep its charm and character. The old land use bylaw had East Olds architectural and design standards, as well as infill standards. It talked about protecting the historical ambience of East Olds, respecting the scale and character of the neighboring homes, and making sure the development didn't overwhelm the street. Those protections aren't included in the new land use bylaw at all. The new land use bylaw removed specific language that told people East Olds matters and should be preserved. The new land use bylaw allows developers in East Olds to pay cash in lieu of providing required parking stalls. So we've gone from a land use bylaw that protected East Olds character and infill to a land use bylaw that allows more large multi-unit development and potentially more congestion in our neighborhood without the same specific protections for the people already living here. The East Olds ARP is the town's official planning document for East Olds, and the LUB should be working with that East Olds ARP, not watering things down. That the East Olds ARP has identified as being important. The highway overlay shouldn't be treated as a blank check. The East Olds ARP talks about commercial opportunity along Highway 2A corridor, and it describes the kind of uses that fit East Olds: coffee shops, bookstores, restaurants, etc., that serve residents, students, and the neighborhood overall, and include the design guidelines and sensitivity to the residential character of East Olds. MUN seems like a much bigger step than the previous Highway Commercial A, and CHA is what was allowed in that overlay as far as I know. These guys probably know better. I think CHA was rolled into Commercial General District in the new land use bylaw. I'm not 100% on that. MUN allows multi-unit dwellings, row houses, semi-detached housings, mixed-use development, offices, retail, and other uses. It also allows multi-unit buildings up to 25 meters. So when people hear mixed use, they picture a small business in an old house like Ladybug Studio, but MUN opens the door to much larger multi-units. I think council should tread carefully when the property is already identified as a place of interest, historical place of interest in the East Olds ARP. 3 more paragraphs. Last council meeting, Bill from the Historical Society also spoke about preserving these historic houses, either on-site or off-site where needed. That's what this property deserves. The trees on this property are also some of the oldest and tallest on the east side and look quite healthy. We shouldn't be talking about preserving Olds history in one meeting and then rezoning a historical place of interest with mature trees and historic character without any preservation plan in the very next meeting. I know this is just a rezoning, but we shouldn't be opening the door to be tearing down a historic place of interest to build a large multi-unit building just because MUN would allow that kind of use. That may fit somewhere else, but this specific property is already identified as a historic place of interest. That should mean something. A preserved historic house is still useful and can operate as a commercial business like Ladybug Studio immediately to the north. That kind of use would fit in East Olds. It would respect the owner's wishes, and it would also respect the character of the neighborhood. East Olds used to have protections written into the land use bylaw. Those protections are gone now, and preserving 4606 50th Street would be a way to show that council still cares about East Olds. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your consideration, and thank you for your time. I know I went over, and thank you for the lectern.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll call for the second time. Anyone deemed affected by the proposed law to come forward and make a presentation. Okay. Seeing none, now I will ask council for comments or questions. Councillor Blatz.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor Daly. I was a little unprepared there. My question through you is to Municipal Planner Sloan. Mr. Sloan, can you please explain to me how the ARP and the land use bylaw relate to each other? My understanding is that the ARP sort of has precedent over the land use bylaw, and if I remember correctly, I think that is one of the ones that we are going to start to review due to requests anyway. So if you could explain that to me and to the gallery, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair. Yes, the ARP, the Area Redevelopment Plan, is a statutory plan that is technically above the land use bylaw in the hierarchy of planning documents that we have. So the regulations within it, the architectural guidelines, do have to be considered in development reviews. One of the things that has come up over the past few years, and one of the reasons that we want to take a look at this plan, is the language within it, the use of should versus shall when speaking about some of these guidelines. It does have many regulations that are stated as shall, which means that we have to enforce that. And it also has should statements, which means we should encourage developers to meet those aspects of the design guidelines. These architectural guidelines were copied into the previous land use bylaw. In most cases, one for one, although there were some aspects that were inconsistent, like driveway widths specific to this district. What's stated in the ARP was different than what was stated in the previous land use bylaw. Now, because it's in this plan, these guidelines, it didn't matter if they were in the land use bylaw or not. They still have to be enforced. At least the shalls do, and the shoulds should be encouraged. And that's part of the decision when we wrote the new land use bylaw. That's part of why those were taken out, because we have area structure plans and area redevelopment plans all over town, and this one particular one was added as a schedule in the land use bylaw, while none of the other ones were. So we do still consider, when it comes time for a development permit to be reviewed, application to be reviewed, we do still consider the guidelines that are in this document. So that's how it relates. We have to enforce the land use bylaw regulations, but also still meet this ARP.
Supplemental, go ahead.
Thank you for that explanation, Planner Sloan. So supplemental to that then too, so I know that a few years ago, probably in last term, I guess, we had a property come forward and that we reviewed it. And I think at that time it was noted, was this ARP done in 2001 or 2007 or something? It's quite a dated ARP, if I remember correctly. And this whole process, though, that when we do go to review it, and if we draft a new type of a document, that will encourage public engagement and public involvement through that whole process and public hearings as well, correct?
That's correct, yes. Any changes or amendments to a statutory plan, such as an ARP, do have to have public hearings. Our plans would be much broader than just a public hearing at a bylaw change. Like, the whole point of that would be to get out and do more engagement with residents in the area. So yes, we are looking forward to that, hopefully starting later this year.
Councillor Kirsch.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to either Mr. Sloan or possibly CAO Williams. Mr. Carlson noted that that particular property is listed as a historical place of interest. Can you enlighten me on where that note would be and what significance that holds, please? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. Yes, so in section 4.4.5 of the area redevelopment plan, it's what they call a residential conversion district, and it lists 4 properties, and it says the following parcels should be redesignated to a residential conversion district that allows for the uses to be in accordance with those envisioned in map 4, the future land use concept map, while protecting the residential character of the buildings.
Supplement?
So if this were to be changed to, would that mean that clause would no longer apply, or because the ARP supersedes the land use bylaw, then that clause would still apply?
Thank you. This clause would still apply because both how it states here the residential conversion district, but we're also speaking about highway overlay districts. It's using the same terms, which I understand isn't ideal, but those are different than land use districts. They're different than the zoning. So this clause can still apply regardless of what the land use bylaw district is. I will note, because I was just speaking about it, the wording, the following parcels should be redesignated into this. So this is something, a very good example of why we would like to have broader discussions about this document. Because when it comes to the time to have a development permit application, if we receive one, this document is saying we should certainly encourage this building to be kept as a property of interest, but it doesn't really give us the tools to enforce that preservation.
Councillor Taylor?
Thanks, Great Daly, and through you to Mr. Sloan. Could you perhaps elaborate on what it takes for a property to become a place of interest and presumably the higher threshold required to become a heritage inventory site? Just like how those two distinctions are different than one another. Thanks.
Thank you, and through the chair, I can try. The town, so this document is from 2014, and the town was more active, I guess, in the past in maintaining an inventory of properties of interest, and it had different degrees of, so in here, for instance, this list shows one is a heritage inventory site, one is a place of interest, or two are places of interest, including this one. Now, I don't have as much knowledge about the background of what went into that when that inventory was created. I believe it predates this ARP, I think, probably 15 or 20 years ago is when that inventory was probably created, I believe, but I don't have the background information on the what was used to identify properties that should be added to that list.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to the planner. I guess my initial thought when I read through this RFD was to pause, and certainly in my case, my decision. But I'm just wondering, and I'll weave a comment with a question. Like I recall, certainly from the LUB revision last year, we all acknowledge East Olds is a unique neighborhood and a eclectic neighborhood. I think you even referenced here, we have commercial, I don't know, north and south, we have RTD to the west. What are the implications? What do we risk other than not being aligned, the LUB to the ARP? What are the implications of not approving this rezone at this time and waiting until we have a more complete discussion with the residents of East Olds, not only with respect to this particular property and area, whole area, you know, the highway overlay district and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair. The conversation is different than last year when we had a very similar discussion about a property, about a rezoning, because of the new land use bylaw. So previously, when there was a rezoning application within this overlay district that spoke to residential commercial uses, that property was in the former R2 district that only allowed residential uses. And the application was to rezone to commercial, to a district that allows residential and commercial. Now, under the new land use bylaw, the current zoning of RTD, or traditional neighborhood district, does allow commercial uses. The traditional neighborhood district was designed to have smaller commercial amenities embedded within a residential neighborhood with minimal impact. So the old conversions of houses to businesses that you see in older areas, that's the sort of thing that the RTD district does allow. So if council chose to not move forward with this rezoning, the current zoning also aligns with the ARP. It is our opinion that MUN does, but RTD also does align with the East Olds ARP.
Well, I'm digesting that. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. So, if a house, so a homeowner, he owns this house. And in the process of his time being at that house, who deems it to be a heritage home? Is it the surrounding people? Is it the town of Olds? And if it is a heritage home and that homeowner decides he wants to do something drastically different to it, I mean, there's certain criteria for improving or changing the looks or whatever of a heritage home. Can he say, okay, I don't want this to be a heritage home anymore. I just want to move forward. I want to do something totally different with this house, like maybe even bulldoze it down. Who gets the final say in that? If you're the homeowner and you all of a sudden decide you don't want it to be a heritage home, who gets to say that they have to, change? Like, am I asking the question correctly?
I see where you're coming from, because we have different definitions or different processes at play here. There are properties in Olds that are designated as provincial, historically significant properties, homes and businesses. Those are under the Provincial Historical Resources Act, or it may be called something different right now. Those, since they have been accepted in the provincial registry, do follow guidelines from everything from renovations to change of use to demolition. And I believe there's financial components they receive are eligible for based on their designation. This property is not under that. It is just under our own classification for the land use bylaw. So it really is obviously up to council to approve any development changes to that, mostly up to the property owner on how they choose to renovate or care for their property. But there's no permission required essentially until it becomes a change of use or a significant alteration like a demolition. To Councillor Wilson's point as well, I think the question, even though we plan on updating the the East Olds ARP, the counterpoint to that is council prepared to stop all applications in East Olds until council updates the ARP as well? Or is it, given that this rezoning, this gentleman, property owner, applied for the rezoning on his own behest, isn't town driven, his ask does align with the East Olds area redevelopment plan as it stands right now. But as Mr. Sloan mentioned, both the proposed rezoning to MUN and the current RTD both are acceptable in our view of that ARP document.
Supplemental?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Daley. So this house is not deemed a heritage house under the provincial standards. So at the end of the day, he can do whatever he wants and request that this rezoning be made. So who would we be to, I guess, not approve that request when all along Highway 2A basically is, I remember when that zoning came in, it was going to be deemed highway commercial along there. So why would we basically not approve that if it's the homeowner's request and it's not a designated provincial heritage home?
And through the chair, and Mr. Sloan can comment further, but just all land use bylaw amendments are in council's purview authority, so it really is council's discretion. The reason for it, yeah, you ought not to rely on provincial historical designation because there is none. So it's the property owner's request to council and council's role to determine if it's in his and your best interest.
Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through either to Planner Sloan or Municipal Planner Sloan or to CEO Williams. I see in the background information here, though, that, I mean, as we've already determined, this owner has made the application. I appreciate Mr. Carlson's remarks. However, the surrounding residents and neighbors were notified that this request has come through, and we had no other letters of support or against this proposed change, did we? Or have you received any recently, or?
Through the chair, no, we haven't received anything regarding this proposal.
Supplemental?
And just remind me, how far of a radius do you go under those circumstances? It's a significant amount of homes that you probably contact, is it not?
We go adjacent and 20 meters, so it's neighboring properties across the street, across the highway, so the college got a notice. But we're looking at, I could get the exact number, but it's fewer than a dozen would have received the notice.
Thank you. Any further questions? I do have, oh, go ahead, Councillor Krush.
More of a comment than a question. Thank you, Mayor Daly. You know, when I came into the meeting, I was like, this seems fine to me, but I would like more time to understand the relationship between the LUB and the East Olds redevelopment plan and how it affects some of these older homes. That street in particular kind of has a old town feel to it. My business is down the road from there, actually. I have friends on that street who have renovated houses and they kept them old looking, or at least with that charm. And so personally, I would just like more time to understand those relationships. And so I think with the information I have right now, I don't think I can get behind this particular amendment.
Thank you. I'd like to just put out a scenario and see what it looks like. So in a theoretical house, and the owner comes forward to us in a situation like this where the area structure plan has a very laid out definition of what this property should be, and then the land use bylaw has another definition more generalized. If by chance this does get rezoned to what the owner is asking for here, would not the ARP protect the historical building itself? And for instance, there's a business straight north of this that they've done that. They've taken and they preserved the historical side of that building and turned it into a commercial business inside. Would that not be kind of a scenario that this person would be eligible for? And or would he be constrained to that? Or would it be a whole makeover where it would lose its historical appearance altogether, as Councillor Overwater said, maybe even replacing the building?
Thank you. The ARP, the wording in the ARP, being that it is a should clause in that section about residential conversions, it wouldn't have strong protections if a landowner were to apply for redevelopment. When I say the should statements, say that we should encourage preservation, we can certainly do that, but we wouldn't be able to refuse permits based purely on that, especially because it's not a provincially designated heritage site as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess just a brief comment. And I think I understand your comment relative to the RTD and the MUN basically being very similar in context. I guess for me, and I am sensitive to the pending ARP review, whenever that will happen, pending capacity and everything else of town staff. But for me, it might be a little bit easier to justify if there was actually a specific proposal that came forward, and then to make a decision. Because again, you know, you said RTD, general commercial, or MUN. So I think if I had a specific proposal coming forward, and I understand it's coming from the landlord, changing the zoning gives him perhaps a little bit more leverage or opportunity if and when he so chooses to sell the particular parcel of land. But if there was something a little bit more specific, then we could look at the rezoning. I think that's essentially where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daly, and through you to Mr. Sloan. Would you be able to speak a little bit further on the overlay district and its intentions? From what I'm seeing, it seems like it's not there as an excuse or an exclusion of the zoning, it just to supplement it. I even see here a clause saying that it still requires a high aesthetic standard for all new development and redevelopments. Would you be able just to speak a little bit about what that zone is about?
Yes, thank you. And through the chair, overlay districts can work in unison with land use bylaw, with zoning. And in fact, land use bylaws often have their own overlay districts as well, where the regulations of the land use district, whether RTD or MUN, pertain to a property and development on it, but also the regulations within the wording of the overlay district, in this case the ARP, they also apply. So it's the land use bylaw, the regulations plus the overlay district are what we have to look at for all of them. So yes, anything, regardless of what the zoning is in the land use bylaw, any regulations that speak to this highway overlay district have to be considered when we're reviewing development permit applications.
Any further questions or comments? All right, Mr. Sloan, any final comments yourself?
None at this time, thanks.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I declare the public hearing for bylaw 2026-10, land use bylaw 2025-14, amendment closed at 1:38. Oh, sorry, 13. Some reason I said 14. Okay, sorry, for amendment 13. Thank you. All right, so now we'll ask the question. Councillor Overwater.
I'll make the first motion if you like. Mayor Daly, are you ready for that?
I think we're ready for that.
Okay. I move that a public hearing, or no, I move that bylaw 2026-13, amendment to land use bylaw 2025-14 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you for that. Any further comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? All right, that is carried. Thank you. Next motion, please. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. I move that bylaw 2026-13, amendment to the land use bylaw 2025-14 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. My only comment is the reason why I feel strongly to support this this land use change is because it's at the request of the homeowner himself.
Thank you for that. I feel the same. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That is passed. Thank you very much. All right, so that takes us down now to delegations. First one is 4.1, RCMP 2025 quarterly report. For introduction, CAO Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Approaching from my right is Staff Sergeant Jamie Day here to walk council through this Q4 report.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm here for obviously the quarter 4 stats to present to you. I did email those in advance, so you could have a look at those if you had any questions. Same area, the stats for the last 3 months look pretty good when it comes to our crime prevention. I do check these out quite a bit, but still obviously that one concern I had last time is mental health still seems to be on the rise, which obviously I explained last time we're pretty proactive with mental health. And we're pretty proactive health. Our pact involved, how better? Okay, getting our pact involved with the nurse and the regular member. But just looking at the stats alone, property crime is down 34% in the last 3 months. We do see an uptick in persons crime, 24%. And a lot of that falls with criminal harassment. And I can speak a little bit to that. A lot of that ends up being mostly neighbor dispute, back and forth with neighbors not getting along. Nothing that we're seeing that would give us any sort of a panic for something else going on in the community. It's mostly people living near each other that don't like each other, tend to call quite a bit. And sometimes those calls do escalate, and we deal with a very small percentage of group of that. So it's not something we're seeing all over town. With that, like I said, even with the drug enforcement, in the last 3 months, 1 file in the town of Olds. Even when it comes to, I'm looking at here, even the provincial traffic, we're up 138%. Members are being pretty proactive when it comes to those impaired drivings going by roadside suspensions or criminal for impaired driving. With that, that's the stats that I'm seeing there. And again, the only uptick I see big is the one when it comes to mental health, which we're obviously working on and we're focused on it to improve. The same with the letter, you see that we are transitioning over to a new duty pistol. We're going away from our old service pistol to a new one. We're expecting that to happen, I'm hoping in the spring. Now, I am a firearms instructor. I have been for quite a few years. And we're going to get into a transition here, hopefully come to spring, and then we're going to see hopefully everyone transition by the fall. So obviously we'll be going in stages for that, and it's quite the transition from our old service pistol to the new one. A lot of moving parts with the new pistol. So it's about a 4-day conversion course that we're looking at doing. So as a firearms instructor, I believe Constable Price is 1-2. We are going to go to Edmonton for 5 days to do the conversion, and my goal is to keep everybody local and do the conversion down here. There's enough amenities around here, even in the surrounding area, that we can do that conversion course. And that way I keep people local and rather than always going to Edmonton all the time for courses. So that is one of my goals. Operational wise, we're doing really well. I've already received information, the new position for Olds RCMP has already been filled. We are receiving a new member from a limited duration post from Consort, Alberta, who's coming here. So he'd have forced housing, so it would be an easy transition from Consort to Olds. My member on parental leave will be back in the 1st of July. And I have 2 members that were off on leave that are back as well this month. Which will put us at a total of 13 regular member positions. We'll have 11 of 13 full duty. The only other 2 that are down, we have 1 member that is on light duties due to an injury, and obviously the sergeant position is vacant, obviously due to Sergeant Beach's retirement. And that's for our staffing levels. Community-wise, even in the stats you see there, community we're very heavily engaged. As you know, my 2 priorities has always been crime reduction and community policing are my 2 biggest. What I would like to see in the fall is I would really like to see us back in the schools more, especially seeing what happened in British Columbia and obviously the media in Red Deer as well. I think it's something that I'm hearing a lot from the community members in general about how much weight a position like that could have here. And being engaged in the community, and I hear visibility all the time, and I know we're doing a lot of it. And I think this would really enhance it if we could enhance more visibility, being at Uptown Olds. I know I got some good feedback on the walking patrols in Uptown Olds. That's just a start. The weather hasn't been obviously in everybody's favor with a lot of rain. I know the farmers are happy. I'm happy for them for the rain. But my goal again is to be off the beaten path as well, not just Uptown Olds, is to be on bike patrols and being in the parks and being around different events to highlight that community engagement. Because I also believe that's a big part of crime reduction as well too. With that, that's what I have for you today, unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you very much for that. And yes, I agree with you 100% on the whole visibility thing and visiting the schools and so forth. I think that's such a positive move on your part and your force's part as well. We'll go to Councillor Blatz and then Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to Staff Sergeant Day. Thank you, Jamie, for your report as always. I did notice that you've got great community engagement and that's great to see. And I think too that your visibility is sort of a twofold situation. Not only do our citizens want to see you engaged in the community, but I also think they want to see that on the enforcement side, you know, as far as traffic enforcement and such. But my question to you goes back to harassment and persons of interest crime. And I know that you've said it seems to be a neighborhood situation, but what about those on social media? A few of us just returned from a conference in Edmonton, and social media is a main topic, particularly amongst elected officials. And I think even with other individuals, we're certainly seeing an increase on people who are very brave to speak, you know, behind a keyboard, but not always so brave to speak to people face to face. And what do you suggest that individuals do as far as monitoring? And I know there's a fine line of when it gets to be vexation and whether it's just, you know,
Oh, I agree.
people's, you know, just blowing off steam, but should people be saving emails, text messages, that type of thing, screenshots of social media posts? Because it might start out innocent and then escalate into something more serious. And some of the other communities that we've spoken with, there's a lot of other communities that it's crossed the line.
Yeah, so we do encourage that. The biggest thing with if you go to our Facebook, you'll see people like to comment on our stuff as well too. And what I'm finding when I go through that, most of them aren't from here. They're from somewhere else or a different province, or we get a lot of feedback on that. But we do get a lot of positive feedback too. The biggest thing if we do with a criminal harassment investigation, if there's some concerns that we obviously look at the content because we have to meet the elements of what the criminal code says for harassment. And depending what that is, and the hard part when it comes to online, we have to prove that person is typing it, which makes things extremely difficult. Now there are ways that we can do production orders depending on the type of level of harassment that's happening. It does take a fair bit of work to get into, but again, it comes down to proving that that person is actually behind the keyboard and making those comments. But if we do have a report of that happening, I always recommend the person to come in and report it. And that's one of our things we tell them immediately is that if you feel that this is going to escalate, start taking copies of that.
Go ahead, supplemental.
Well, and I understand the part about proving it, but I'll tell you, if somebody used my name and wrote something vexatious, I would be stopping it myself. So I would hope that if somebody's using a false name or using someone else's Facebook page, that could be stopped.
Yeah, so if depending on what's happening, it can be stopped, but depending on what happened and depending on what level of harassment it is, if it is speaking towards somebody, then it becomes civil. That way there you can go have civil court, have your matter explained. And the difference with civil court and criminal court, civil, you have to prove 50% of your case and you've won. Criminal court, we have to prove 100% to get a conviction. So if there is slander, if there is information towards an individual that they feel that is degrading toward that person, then we would recommend them to go a civil side because there's consequences of that as well.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. Through you to Staff Sergeant Day, how do you know, or when do you recommend, like with the Youth Restorative Justice Committee, when do you refer an act to that committee? Like, is that first presented? I mean, it's 12 to 17, these kids. If they do something and, tear out somebody's shrubs or something like that, and the victim wants them to be responsible for it, when is that referred to that committee?
So that's something like that, like the example you gave would be immediately. I just had a meeting with the district, so all Southern Alberta District last week when it came to restorative justice. So they're looking at potentially making a kind of a joining sundry Didsbury and Olds together. And a lot of times we're going to see is that's a good thing in my opinion because you get more caseload. But they're going to come out with a new list for us on what type of files that we can start forwarding, depending on. And it doesn't mean that if they've gone to court before. What I'm understanding in the short here from just my first meeting is it sounds like it, depending on the offense, that even though they've gone to court and say they've been convicted on something, doesn't mean we can't refer them still to the committee. I know years ago we've done it one, and then if they didn't complete it, then it was over with. But they are looking at ways of doing that. There's more opportunity for them to have that restorative justice. So once we get the list of knowing what those type of offenses are, we then can make the decision on just giving a direct restorative justice rather than going through the courts. The only difference is depending on the offense, if we do that, and the person decides or the individual decides not to complete restorative justice, there's no, well, we're going to come back and charge you now. So we can't do that. So if we go through the Crown way and we lay the charge, and then they don't say they want to comply with the rules, then the conviction can be held. So we pick our files that we choose that with obviously we're hoping the person's going to be successful, but we run that risk of deferring it over to restorative justice. But again, if the person decides not to cooperate, we can't turn around and then say we're going to charge you.
Supplemental, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. So that has changed then,
Mhm.
right? Because before you could send them back to, restorative justice, right?
Yep.
Whereas now you can't.
Now we can't.
So do you work with the schools, do you go up and sort of present to the teachers and, I'm talking like Deer Meadow to high school, and do you present and say, this is what we have here, and if you have some kids that are problematic or whatever, you can go this way, and do you sort of promote the restorative justice
Yeah.
committee versus, just half the people don't even know that it exists. So how is that promoted?
And that's something we're going to obviously put focus on a lot now that we've had that meeting. There's going to be more follow-up meetings, and before we present it, because it's a new twist to kind of everything that's going on, are we changing it? It sounds like we are going to change it towards a multiple detachment one. So I want to make sure that's all kind of straightened out first before we go into the schools. But that's where I think it's so important to have a member, and the regular member that's in there, talking with the teachers, talking with the principals. What child should I focus on today? Any child's having difficulty in school today, then or at home that I can maybe focus on today while I'm in the school. There's nothing that drives me more crazy than a member that drives around and doesn't stop, and a member that walks through school and doesn't stop to talk to somebody. I can't tell you how amazing connection that is to see when you see that fully develop. It really creates that trust, just not with the teachers but also the students, and it's incredible the information that we can learn in a school just by being there.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson and Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to the staff sergeant. And at the risk of belaboring a point, and in the event that you haven't yet been able to watch the May 25th Council YouTube, Director Andrew presented to Council a pretty thorough commentary and explanation on the electric kick scooters.
Yeah, they're popular.
And knowing that, under the Traffic Safety Act, and they're a prohibited miniature vehicle, and we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place or a no man's land. I'm just interested from your perspective, enforcement, because again, with the summer, obviously they're very evident out on the roadways, the pathways, the sidewalks and everything. Just wondering from your perspective, the approach to policing, to enforcement, and maybe equally, if not more important, is there anything that council can do, recognizing it's, I think, a provincial jurisdiction, it's prohibited? Is there anything we can do to make collectively your guys' job easier?
I think right now, obviously, I'm quite engaged with Director Andrews and municipal enforcement. We do have an upcoming meeting with a neighboring municipality who's having the same issue. So we're going to engage with them and we're going to have some conversations. I think it's a bit early to say, but off the top of my head, I'm going to say education is probably like the biggest one. Educating that and getting out there and getting the message out there that this is a prohibited device. As far as council, I mean, if you have those conversations, I would be shocked if you're getting questions about those devices, and more come our way, I think. I mean, you're all very supportive, and which we're greatly appreciate, of course. But I think we just have to engage in more understanding of these e-scooters and what other places are doing as well, and see if we come up with a collaborative way of how do we approach this. But at the top of my head, I'm going to say education is probably going to be the #1 priority. And that's, obviously not chasing youth down with our police cars that are on these e-scooters, is finding a way that we can engage with them and their parents and educate them. And, because you do see a lot of them around not wearing helmets. You do see a lot of them. I was talking to the sergeant right over there for municipal enforcement. I think when I spoke with him in his office, within a matter of 5 minutes, we saw 3 race right through the intersection. So there's a concern for sure, right? So I think we just need to, we need to educate ourselves as well. It's not something that I think when I get into policing, I'm going to be investigating. But obviously we don't want anybody hurt, right? The youth getting injured. So obviously it's elevated to a risk that there's some concerns, and I think we want to do our homework. And then we come at this at a level head and see what we can do about that.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daly, and through to Staff Sergeant Day. I just want to talk about the community consultations. You've identified 33 of them in this 3-month period from the outside looking in. That sounds like a lot. I just want to know if that pace is aligning with your goals. How do you see that? And
It's a lot for me. I take on a lot of that directive, and that's why I want help in that area with the members. I've always been at that pace that I'm that passionate about community policing and making sure that our communities engage with our members and know who they are and they're approachable. They're not, I want to make sure that if somebody is no matter the age, youth, adults, senior, I like to see us more in senior homes, doing fraud presentations. I have a book that I'm literally ready to roll out here for members to say, this is the expectation when it comes to how much I want engagement in our community, because I think it's important. And I think it's a huge tool to have as a crime reduction tool as well.
Thank you. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. Councillor Wilson talked about the scooters. What about the electric bikes? I mean, I did bring that up with Mr. Andrews, and the electric bikes, usually they're adults. So I think maybe you should go down the street with your sirens blaring and your lights going and stop them. Like, what do you do with them? I mean, they're driving as if they're in a car, yet they don't follow the same rules as a car.
And they're supposed to, see, that's the difference,
They should, but they don't. So what do you do with them?
And I think same thing, like when we have that meeting, we get together, we're gonna iron out those details. The difference with the bicycles, they can convert, from my understanding, to pedal, right, as well. So they have that to turn off thing, and I don't know if the e-scooters, I'm not that well adversed in the e-scooters, but I don't know if they can push them. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, they come with the bikes, because the bikes you can convert back and forth. If the battery's getting low, you can start pedaling. But I think I can tell you it's a conversation that Director Andrews, myself, municipal enforcement, we've been heavily engaged in this area, and we're looking forward to having those sit downs with neighboring communities and see if we can come up with a solution to tackle those type of challenges.
Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to Staff Sergeant D. You mentioned that you were looking at hosting the training event here in Olds. How many officers would you expect to come to Olds for that event? And if there are any, can you elaborate on any savings that we would experience because of that?
You save quite a bit. We save travel costs. We save Not just within Olds, the officer are going to save costs for Sundre detachment, would save costs, Didsbury detachment. So anyone that's somewhat local to us would be a significant increase in, or a decrease in costs when it comes to those type of training, because it would be held local. So you wouldn't have to pay hotel bills, you wouldn't have to pay all different meals throughout the day, basically a lunch, the ones that are traveling, but it wouldn't, again, it wouldn't be on us, it would be on the detachment that they're coming from. But within the town of Olds, it'd be big savings.
Thank you. Any last questions or comments? Seeing none. You've educated us quite well, Staff Sergeant.
tried.
That's a tough job, let me tell you.
Has its moments, but you know what? There are times it's rewarding. And if I may, can I just share one thing? So on the Facebook page, it's doing very well. And one of my comments when I posted the municipal enforcement officer and the RCMP officer walking together. Now I take a lot of those comments with a grain of salt, as you know, they're everywhere. But one of my favorite comments that still sits with me, and even though this is over a week ago that I read it, and I still think about it, there was one comment on there, an individual posted that it said they were always in favor of a provincial police force, but seeing the changes that's happening here in Olds, they're now not opposed to what we're doing. So to me, that really resonated with me, that the work that we're putting in on a daily basis is starting to show. So I'm going to continue down that path and hoping that continues with that positive feedback.
Yeah, that is a great message. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for coming here today to enlighten us. And again, can't say enough about the work that you and your team do in the community, and how much we really appreciate what you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I make the motion that council accepts the Royal Canadian Mounted Police quarterly report as presented.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And thanks again, Staff Sergeant Day. And so that takes us to 4.2, Dillon Consulting Rural Transit Study Presentation. CAO Williams for introductions.
Yes, thank you once again, Mayor Daley. And again, to my right, we have Thomas Pacey with Dillon Consulting, who's here to lead council through the transportation study that was conducted over the last several months. So, Thomas, turn it over to you.
Okay, great. We've got some slides to go with this, hopefully. Okay, great. So yeah, we're going to present on the feasibility study that we undertook. And on the next slide, just a quick outline of what we're going to discuss today. So it's going to be a quick little background, a bit of what we heard. Then the service options we investigated, and then recommendations. So quick little background. We wanted to understand the mobility needs of residents in Olds and understand the feasibility of implementing a sustainable transportation option. This is on the next slide. Yep. And then Olds, as you're aware, is steadily growing. It's got a relative general rising cost, rising insecurity across the country. And so transportation can also help with that. So the project was looking at those gaps in mobility that exist today, talking to the community, talking to stakeholders, getting their input, looking at affordable solutions and trying to come up with ideas that are sort of pragmatic and of the right scale for a town the size of Olds, and come up with something that could be sustainable and financially responsible. So on the next slide, a quick overview of the engagement that we undertook. We advertised the engagement with some posters in key locations, in newspapers, on social media. There were also referral cards at the in-person sessions, so people could take that away, encourage others to do the survey, be aware of the process. The survey was online, but also had physical copies. There were 15 closed questions and one question where people could type anything. It was done online with SurveyMonkey. The hard copies were both available just for people to grab at the admin office, but also some people did take some and circulate them amongst their communities. And we received almost 500 responses. So it was a really strong response for a community of this size. We also specifically targeted certain stakeholders and had some one-on-one and group sessions with like the Chamber of Commerce, the Students Association, and Olds College itself, Padnoma, Mountain View Seniors, the Community Connection Center, Family School Wellness Program had a representative as well. So it was good to get all their perspectives for them organizationally, but also for the people that they represent. And then there was one public drop-in session in February at the Community Connection Center. Didn't have a huge turnout, but considering how many survey responses we got, we were confident that the word was getting out in the community and people were having their say through the survey. Okay, so what we heard, current transportation options were considered to be a bit expensive. So that's taxis. Also, you have other private ways of getting around mainly. And people, particularly youth, seniors and families, wanted some affordable options. There were mobility gaps for accessing employment and some services and regional connectivity. People who didn't have transportation were talking about how useful it would be how it could improve their social connection with the community. People not engaging socially because they can't get to community events. Also help promote collaboration and travel to other areas. Also, we heard people wanted a larger vehicle than the Sunshine Bus currently has. They wanted to be able to have a charter option to take larger groups places. Generally, the community had people that were very supportive of transit, but also people that had concerns around the cost of transit and whether it was an appropriate use of the town's funds. And then of those that did support transit, some of them supported a more traditional fixed route option and some supported more of an on-demand option. And in the next slides, we'll run through those. So the first sort of option that we developed after we spoke to the community was a traditional fixed route option. This is generally what you think about when you think of a transit service. It's a vehicle that goes on the same route at regular times as defined in a timetable. Same time, same route, same stops every day. When we came up with this alignment, we were trying to balance covering enough of the town, but also not making the trip too long, too windy, makes it unattractive. It would have stops roughly every 300 meters along this route and basically run from the main commercial area in the west through to the college in the east, in one direction via the north and the hospital, and one direction via the south, hitting more of and uptown, hitting more of those kind of community facilities and also that residential area in the south. With this kind of route, you could operate a service every hour, and that would just be the bus going around the town every hour. Then the next option we looked at was an on-demand option. So this is what a lot of communities, smaller communities, look at these days, and it's basically you have to request. So it's kind of like the Sunshine Bus, but available for everybody and doesn't pick you up at your front door. It picks you up at designated stops still. So the idea is still consolidating people onto a vehicle, picking them up at stops, trying to take them to similar areas and pick them up from similar areas, and therefore combine trips and create efficiencies that way. But an on-demand option compared to a fixed route option gives you more coverage. You can go and you can put stops anywhere, and the vehicle doesn't have to follow the same route every time, doesn't have to run at the same time every time. So it really provides more flexibility. You can cover more of the town, get more people on board. It would also be real time, so you would request when you wanted to travel. You wouldn't have to book in advance like you do with the Sunshine Bus, and the availability would determine how long till the bus comes to pick you up and how long your trip would take. So while this provides more coverage and more flexibility, it does have less capacity than a fixed route. The bus has to get to everybody, and then depending on when and where those requests are, it may not be able to consolidate a lot of people onto a particular trip. So you don't have the capacity you get with a fixed route where you know where the bus is going to be and people adjust their plans around it. So with those two options considered, we then moved to the hybrid option, which tries to do the best of both worlds. You get the coverage of the on-demand, making sure that you can get into all the different neighborhoods, but you also have a fixed route to deal with those stronger demands where you know you're going to have capacity issues. So in this example here, we have the fixed route running again from the commercial centre to the college. We would expect the college to be the major driver of demand in terms of a single point. Post-secondary institutions are always really good transit drivers. Students have regular travel patterns, staff have regular travel patterns, and there's a lot of people going to one place. And when we spoke to the community also told us they all want to get to Walmart and Sobeys and go shopping as well. So the idea behind this proposed fixed route would be to tie together the strongest demands, the commercial area, some of that growing residential area where we know a lot of students are as well, uptown and all the businesses there, and the college. It's much more direct than the proposed standalone fixed route because it doesn't need to try and cover the whole town. And in being more direct, it can run more often. So it could run every half hour. Everywhere else in town would still be covered by the on-demand, so that you'd be able to balance all the different needs. So then when we have a look at the next slide, which compares all these options, the hybrid option does achieve more, but it comes at the cost of you need to run two services. You need to have two vehicles. You need to have one running the on-demand and one running the fixed route. Versus the fixed route and on-demand options, you could run with one vehicle, or subject to demand, you could increase to two vehicles. So that's the trade-off for the hybrid. It is more expensive, but it does provide a more robust solution, and it deals with some of the risks, particularly from the college in the morning when we know a lot of students need to get there, that could easily overload an on-demand system. We're also aware with the current Sunshine Bus that while it is focused on those with mobility needs specifically and traditionally was only available to eligible registered riders, it is currently available to the broader community. But their capacity is quite limited. They usually book up mostly with pre-bookings with eligible riders, and the availability to the general public is only day of. There's a limited sort of time when you can call to try and arrange a trip, and a lot of the community we spoke to found it didn't meet their needs because of the sort of problems with getting a same-day booking, or they just weren't aware that they were even able to take it. So then how this could all play out in terms of the delivery options. You have the different services that we've run through, but also there's the consideration of how to run any particular service. So you could go for a wholly town-owned option where you own your vehicles, you employ the drivers, you do your own maintenance. There's a contracted option where you contract everything out. Someone else owns the vehicle, maintains, drives the vehicle. And then there's a sort of hybrid option again, where you own the vehicle, but someone else operates it and potentially someone maintains it, or you can maintain it. The main advantage to the town owning a vehicle is that the town is generally a better place to get grants to fund new vehicles and can get a lot more access to capital to procure vehicles. And then it's up to council as to how vehicles should be operated or maintained, whether they own them or not. Noting the Sunshine Bus is generally driven, is a sort of hybrid. You have some volunteer staff and you have some town staff today, but town does own the Sunshine Bus. So in terms of how this could actually be implemented, really noting that town is growing, but this can be a significant cost. We would recommend starting by basically improving the Sunshine Bus. So incremental changes. You could improve access to the Sunshine Bus by starting with a digital platform. So one where people could request without calling in. And also that would allow, a digital platform would allow better same-day scheduling. You wouldn't need a person the day before to manually say, oh, we'll pick up this person, then that person, and build a plan. And that plan's very brittle when it comes to changes on the day of. If you have a digital system that can say, oh, you've got a request, let's reroute this way, let's change this, and let's adjust. So you get a little more capacity, and you also get better flexibility on the day of. And that cost is relatively low. Also to help meet the needs of students, people trying to access employment. Like we certainly heard from some of the employers about people walking long distances to get to work and struggling when the weather is particularly bad. So extending those hours earlier to meet the workers and also later to meet the workers and the students as well, that would cost in the range of around $80,000 a year just for those extra hours a day on the Sunshine Bus. And then if demand warranted it, you could expand by having a dedicated on-demand vehicle. So that would be a second vehicle. You would still run the Sunshine Bus to provide mobility access to those who need it. And then you would run a general public on-demand service. You would need to procure another vehicle. But you could use that same scheduling system the digital system that you could have procured in the first phase. So that system can differentiate between those with mobility needs that need to be picked up at their door and dropped off and maybe being given assistance, as with other people that can only board at a stop or expected to walk to and from their destination. So you can set up different profiles in the system and therefore run both systems with the same software. You would need a second vehicle. I know the town has applied for grants for an extra vehicle anyway, so if that were successful, that would be a lot of that cost already covered for a second vehicle. And then you would need the outlay for all those operating hours for basically doubling the operating time by having one vehicle running the Sunshine Bus and one vehicle running the general public service. And then only then, if the sort of concerns around capacity for the college were a problem, you could then have a look at adding that fixed route to soak up those key strong demand points and free up the on-demand vehicle. We propose that that would run only during college times, so that you wouldn't, over the summer, probably see that level of demand. Students aren't going to college, some students aren't in town, and so that would limit sort of the costs because it would only run certain times of the year. And particularly when it comes to the college and the demand that we would expect would be generated by them, we would encourage you to speak to the college and the student union. They were very interested during engagement and happy to engage on this issue. And certainly in other post-secondary institutions around the country, UPass programs are very common, where the union or the institution basically adds it to the student fees. You get a guaranteed amount of funding and they get a transit pass. So that kind of system allows you to increase service to provide for them, and working with the college could be a really good way to offset some of these costs and justify a system like this. That's with this sort of phased approach, because you don't want to necessarily guarantee you're going to achieve any one thing, and you really can scale it based on the demand you actually see and incrementally build service. But that's, what we had to present today, so happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and thank you very much for this study. This was a very comprehensive study. There was an awful lot of reading and a lot of information to digest, and it's all very valuable. I really appreciate it. Through you, Mayor Daley, through to to CO Williams. With this study, though, I'm assuming that we will be attaching this document to our webpage for people to browse at their leisure. But would there also be something like an executive summary that could be attached, or even similar to what the slide presentation we've had today, for people to review it and understand what we're trying to get at and what we're looking at for future capital investment?
Thanks. And through the chair, certainly once it's posted to our website, we can provide an executive summary along with the slide deck and any other internal information we might have.
Supplemental?
Yes, thank you. So with that then, and because it's got capital investment, future capital investment, will we be looking at that as as part of our capital plans for the future to build this type of transit system into the future? I mean, it's not something we can potentially look at, I know, within the next year or two, and maybe we'll have to, I'm not sure, but is this something that we're going to build into future capital plans?
Thanks again. Through the chair, at council's direction, yes. Thomas referenced the other grant, which is still Rural Transit Solutions, but on the capital side that we have applied for. So once we have word back from that, it'll help us better determine what both capital and therefore operational costs are going to be with an expanded transit model. And I think the phase one option does seem to be the most incremental and pragmatic choice to expand the Sunshine Bus. But yeah, once we have further clarity on that grant, then administration will gauge council's appetite for expanding that service. But
truly supplemental.
Yeah, go ahead.
So having completed this type of study then, does that increase our availability and our chances for applying for this, well, this grant we've already applied for, but future grants as well?
Yeah, yes, yeah, having this information is beneficial to help prove our business case to funding agencies, mainly the federal government at this point.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to the consultant. Just lots of numbers in here, which is great. Can you comment on the margin of error or the confidence relative to the costs that you've quoted in here, and the level of certainty that you and hence council could take from the costing information that's in here? Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, the costing information and the sort of ridership projections that we came up with are based on similar systems from similar sized communities. So we looked at a few other systems around Alberta in particular, but ones with smaller communities, and looked at some of their contracting models. And we assumed for the dollar figures, we assumed the rate that is similar to contracted operations elsewhere in the province. So we're fairly confident that you would see that kind of ridership and that kind of cost. We assumed as well that the fares would be the same as the Sunshine Bus. I think the main thing to consider, though, is you wouldn't get that ridership on day one. People's travel behaviour takes time to change. You'd expect a year or two to sort of build to those levels and establish the system and get awareness.
Supplemental?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and you kind of touched on it a bit in terms of where you pulled the data from and the comparables and communities and everything. Because again, through the information, I think, and your survey results, you referenced, I think, daily usage ridership would only be like, or would be 18.1%. But you've used comparable communities like similar size. And then I look at that revenue to cost ratio and everything else, 18.1% was not a lot, and would certainly, as you indicate, would point you towards some kind of on-demand and utilizing the infrastructure we have rather than trying to go way outside the box at this point. But my question was going to be 18.1. Is that reasonable? And I think you've addressed it, though, through your methodology. Thank you.
Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. Just a couple of comments. We as a smaller community, we've been told we don't get access to transportation dollars. I mean, they all go to Red Deer, Edmonton, Calgary. We never have had access to any sort of grant funding for like specifically buses and stuff. In your presentation here, you talk about one bus, but really you need two buses in order to make the whole system work, because if one bus goes down, then your whole system is shut down. So you actually need two buses. So the numbers are maybe a bit skewed due to the fact that you're basing it on one bus versus two buses that I think we would need. And in the survey, I think a lot of people said the community was walkable. Well, it's walkable if you're just only walking around and having a leisurely walk, but it's not walkable if you're going to the grocery store and buying, 6 bags of groceries. You need somehow to get home. So those are just comments of mine that I think it's going to be quite a endeavor to have a busing transit system here due to the fact of the cost.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if you could explain to us some pros and cons of the contract world of public transportation. Just that in probably the last year, or more so in the last few months since you started putting together this report, been contacted by a few contract transportation people saying, hey, I noticed Olds is doing this study. Maybe we can talk sometime. So I'm just wondering, they've all offered, we can do this for a price or whatever. Just, I'll throw that back to you to get some insight on that.
Yeah, through the chair to you. Yes, often when these studies occur, different types of contractors will contact you. Generally, there's the two sort of types. There's the ones that provide on-demand software and just the software, and they will often contact you. There are the ones that actually operate and maintain vehicles, and they will contact you. Sometimes they do in partnership as well. There are some players that are certainly very common here in Alberta and do other communities as large as Airdrie, for instance, is contracted out, but a lot of the smaller communities too. They will have pros and cons. Personally, I would traditionally recommend that you own the vehicles because it, again, allows you access to grants, but also if you come to changing contracts, you have a lower barrier for entry for contractors. They don't have to bring a vehicle or necessarily a garage. If you have the vehicle, you open it up to more bidders. So that's another reason to go down that road. But yes, if you're interested in going and implementing, I would encourage you to have these discussions with these potential contractors, but they usually are very good at finding out these opportunities.
Thank you for that. Any further questions? Councillor Kirsch.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you. This is more of a comment. I know that we need to get moving on our agenda, but great presentation. I read through the study and I read through a lot of the comments, and I just wanted to clarify for the public that this wasn't a transit system proposal. It was a feasibility study, and also this was not taxpayer funded. It was paid for through a grant. So I just wanted to make that clear to the public because I noticed there was a lot of comments about those two particular issues. So
Thank you for that, yeah. Any further questions? No? All right, somebody would like to make a motion? Councillor Taylor, you've been quiet today.
Thanks, Mayor Daly. I move that council accepts the transit study for information.
Thank you for that. Any last questions or comments? I see none. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much for your time today, and lots of good information in that report for us to refer back to when the time comes. Thank you very much for attending. Okay, takes us to section 5, bylaws. Turn it over to CAO Williams for introduction of bylaw 2026-19, land use bylaw 25-14 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Daly, and Mr. Sloan is with us again to lead us through both 5.1 and 5.2. Over to Kyle.
Thank you. The first bylaw amendment for first reading, bylaw 2026-19, proposes to rezone 4606 48th Street from the traditional neighborhood district, or RTD, to mixed use node, or MUN. This subject property is located within the East Olds Area Redevelopment Plan and specifically within the Highway Overlay District. The Overlay District speaks to a mix of residential and commercial uses, including live workspaces. The parcel directly to the north of the subject site is zoned commercial general, or CGD, while the parcels to the west and south are already zoned MUN. And I will also note that the parcel zoned CGD is currently being developed as a residential property. Under the previous land use bylaw, the CH or CHA district did allow for some residential uses, despite it being commercial zoning. The proposed bylaw amendment aligns with the East Olds Area Redevelopment Plan, and given that the entire remainder of this block is already zoned MUN, that the applicant is proposing for this one, administration believes it is appropriate for this property to be rezoned as the same. MUN would allow for the development of residential units or commercial amenities or both of which are encouraged by the ARP And in this location, with proximity to Olds College and visibility from 2A, those commercial aspects of the MUN district our administration believes welcome. I will also note, despite the current zoning being RTD or under the previous bylaw R2, this is a commercial use currently. The site is a car wash that, when it opened, received that approval within the R2 district many decades ago. So the recommendation here is that council give this bylaw first reading and set a public hearing date for July 13th in council chambers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're, of course, just looking for first reading here of this motion and to set the public hearing. So I'll look for a motion. Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I make the motion that bylaw number 2026-19, amendment to land use bylaw 2025-14 be given first reading as presented.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? No? All those in favor? That is passed. Thank you very much. And then for the setting of the public hearing, Councillor Kurz.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. I make the motion that Monday, July 13th, 2026 at 1 p.m. in council chambers be set as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on bylaw number 2026-19.
Thank you. Any comments, questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried as well. Thank you very much for that. So back to you, Mr. Sloan, for 5.2.
Thank you again. Bylaw 2026-20 proposes to rezone 4535 51st Avenue from commercial general, or a CGD, to mixed use node, or MUN, to allow for residential development. The subject site is within the Uptown Area Redevelopment Plan, which identifies this land as future medium to high density residential, which aligns with the proposed rezoning. The neighboring parcels to the west, north, and east are already in the MUN land use district, while the parcels to the south are zoned CGD, or commercial general. Administration is in support of the proposed amendments, as the rest of this cul-de-sac are already in this zoning, and the ARP supports it as well. So again, the recommendation is the council give bylaw 2026-20 first reading and to set a council or public hearing date for July 13th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, then I'll ask for a motion for first reading. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. I move that bylaw 2026-20, amendment to land use bylaw 2025-14 be given first reading as presented.
Thank you for that. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And now to set the public hearing, Councillor Cook.
Thank you. I move that Monday, July 13th, 2026 at 1 p.m. in council chambers be set as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on bylaw number 2026-20.
Thank you for that. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. So we're going to move down to 6, business. Turn it over to C.L. Williams for 6.1, privacy management program.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. As discussed last week at Committee of the Whole, the final 2 policies required to complete our privacy management program in advance of the June 11th provincial deadline is before council today. So we have 235C, privacy management policy, and 236C, artificial intelligence policy. They look the same as was discussed last week, but Happy to take any more questions if there is more things to discuss.
Thank you. Does council have any questions or comments for CEO? Go ahead, Councilor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. And last week while we were at our conference in Edmonton, I met with a number of municipalities in our area and across Alberta that are doing this very same thing this week to meet this deadline. And we had similar conversations about some of the information that we have received and that we have to approve, and the community comments that other communities have received as feedback as well. So I just wanted to make that comment that we're in the same situation as most municipalities.
Go ahead, CEO Williams.
Yeah, I've sent this to several of my colleagues in the last few days as well, who have reached out trying to meet the deadline as well. And it shows that staff here, Marceline included, but led by Charlotte No in our office, have done an exceptional amount of work on this file over the last 6 months or so. So kudos to them. It was a good learning exercise to develop this process based on the standards, and hopefully the province provides further support and direction as it rolls out and the kinks need to be ironed.
Thank you. Councilor Krush.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to CAO Williams. On the artificial intelligence policy, is there any framework coming down from the province or talk about that on what tools should or could be utilized, or is this kind of municipality to municipality? I know there are a multitude of AI tools coming on the market on what seems like a daily basis, and I'm sure they're not equal, so I was just wondering if there's any sort of guidelines available to administration as they try to navigate this area.
Thanks for the question to the chair. There has been some soft efforts, something like AI training videos that have been released, but there's nothing that could be classified as guidelines or certainly regulations. The closest thing we've seen was just last week when the federal government announced kind of their AI strategy, and that was the pieces that may concern us in the future is more around harm reduction, making sure AI is not used for vulnerable populations like children. I do believe, given the privacy implications, we will see guidance from the province at some point in the near future. But for time being, to use your term, it very much is municipality to municipality right now. So and I see this being a very fluid situation for the next couple of years. Our goal with the AI policy here is to provide a bit of a framework on expectations of use for staff, and even getting as prescriptive, I believe it was in the procedure on which AI tools are permissible, and Claude Anthropic being the leader in that recommendation, along with Google Gemini and what's built into Microsoft Office Suite. It's presented today. I think I mentioned this last Monday, just because there are significant privacy implications, so we want to make sure staff are at least given the direction that there are expectations on what you can and cannot put into AI software regarding personal proprietary information that we have and we collect here on a regular basis.
Yvette, go ahead.
Maybe once that's all kind of locked down a little more, council can also have a briefing on that so that we know that we're not stepping over the boundaries, that we should be using some of these tools.
Very good point. And council came up in this policy. In fact, prior to my edits, council was included in this policy as being, it also applies to you, but given the changes last year to the MGA, that council can no longer issue policies or bylaws that govern the behavior or conduct of council. I wasn't confident that this wasn't doing that as well, but certainly from a practical standpoint, council certainly should have some further oversight and training on what AI uses look like municipally and how we're using it and how you should be using it too.
Good. Councilor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to CEO Williams. On that last comment that you made about what we used to be our code of conduct, and perhaps maybe once the province decides how they're going to revisit that whole process and what they're going to have us as councils do, that could be built, this type of thing should be built into that code of conduct and going forward, I would think, because we did have several conversations with other municipalities, and there are some provinces that are already farther ahead with this type of thing as far as AI, but, and they're utilizing it with different tools, but maybe perhaps then we will have to look at that when it comes time to rewrite our own code of conduct.
Okay, good. Any further questions or comments on this? All right, then I'll be looking for somebody to make a motion. Councillor Kush,
Make a motion that council approve the privacy management policy 235C as presented.
thank you. Any last comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. The next motion, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I make the motion that council approve the artificial intelligence policy 236C as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Down to 6.2, Community Services Policy Update, and over to CAO Williams.
Thank you again. Just like the privacy management program, these two policies, 804C and 901C, were presented last Monday for council's consideration. Considerable updates to both. They are before you today, as they were last week, but again, happy to take any questions or hear more comments on them.
Thank you. Looking to council, is there any questions or comments on these two policies? Councillor Kush.
Just a quick comment, since you weren't here last week, you might have watched the meeting. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I do hope that the town is seriously investigating the abuse of the payment policies that might be a little too lenient, and that we're revamping some of those policies so that we can have fair use of our facilities and get paid for bookings.
CAO Williams.
Through the chair, I was here last week. But I have a forgettable face, so that's not a bad thing. Yeah, certainly it's that issue is certainly more historical for us, that how we manage that relationship. And even though the policy regime, I believe, is there for us to have a better system and more enforceable system, it really comes down to, I believe, our usership agreements with each of the primary user groups, and then how we implement those agreements. But point well taken, it's something we have let slide in the past, and we are currently trying to rectify and get better at.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? All right, so as you notice in the RFD, it does not mention the numbers of the policy, so please include the numbers 804C and 901C in your motion. Councillor Cook?
I move that council approves the community services policies 804C, community grants policy, and 901C, recreation facilities booking as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much for that. Move down to item 6.3, Committee of the Whole Meeting Schedule Adjustment. CAO Williams.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. This RFD seeks to move the August 4th Committee of the Whole meeting to September, which aligns with our general practice. This seems to be my error at the time of the organizational meeting in October, that we generally try not to schedule something in early August to give the approximate 6-week break in between the July regular council meeting and the September Committee of the Whole, or last meeting in August, sorry. So July 13th-ish is the I think that, yeah, the July meeting, so this would break until the last week of August if council accepts this recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion or questions on this? Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. And just a comment, then I'm assuming you never want me to chair a meeting. There's no meeting. No. Oh, in September? I'm not deputy mayor in September. Oh, I don't really need to chair anything, but just thought I'd say that.
Oh, I would look forward to you chairing the meeting, Councillor Overwater. Yes, I'd mark a star on my calendar. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Blount.
Just a comment that I guess if there was anything that was an emergent need or that we would call a meeting at some point in time over the summer, just for the viewing public, in case people think that we would not be having a meeting, but if there was something of an emergent issue, then we would do that.
Yes, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, so I'll look for a motion. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daley. I move that the committee of the whole meeting currently scheduled for 1 p.m. in council chambers on Tuesday, August 4th, 2026, be rescheduled to Tuesday, September 8th, 2026. Same time and location.
Okay, thank you. Last comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. All right, so we go down to 6.4, Chief Administrative Officer Performance Evaluation. So we have concluded our Chief Administrative Officer evaluation. We have submitted a summary on the RFD, and we are quite happy with the performance of our CAO. So thank you very much, Brent, for all that you do for the town of Olds, and that we look forward to doing bigger and better things moving forward into the future, and continuing to bring Olds standards as far as operation of town up. And is there any other comments from the rest of council? Because this wasn't just me that performed this evaluation, so I open the floor for comments to council. Go ahead, Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Yes, council was all involved in the evaluation, and I'd like to say I've gone through several CAOs and temporary COs in my previous terms as a councillor. And I would like to say that the information that I've been provided since being elected in October is an abundance of reading. And I think we can all say that the information that you give us is, you know, enough for us to make good decisions. And to reiterate that when we do get information, it is council that is directing the CAO and administration to follow out our direction. So, you know, contrary to what some believe, it is council's decision when we direct administration to do certain things. Thank you for your service, Brent.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess my only brief comment would be, I think the use of the third party in this case, I think gave us some good information, probably information that we wouldn't necessarily have as part of the validation, given the relationship we have strictly with the CAO as council's sole employee. So I think utilizing the third party in this case was able to peel back a layer or two and provide further information that perhaps council wouldn't necessarily have had as part of the evaluation process. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, too. And I think going along further, too, I concur. I appreciate the work and the effort that CAO Williams has done and all of his staff over the past years that I've been involved with council and the town, too. And I think it also needs to be noted that not only did we have the third party, but this also involved a number of layers of your staff as well, who were able to weigh in on the performance and the evaluation of our CAO. So I thank them all too for their participation.
Good. Anybody else? Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daly. We get the criticism a lot that our CEO is overpaid, but I believe that we have enough information to say that qualitatively, definitively with evidence, he's not. He's 50th percentile, and I think this performance review also underlines what value we're getting for that money as well. So, thank you.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Would you like to weigh in? You're good, Councillor Cook? Okay. So thank you for what you do for the town of Olds, Brent, as you've heard here today, that you do a lot more over and above than what it normally asks for, and it is very much appreciated by this council. And we couldn't do what we do if it wasn't for you, so thank you very much. Councillor Overwater.
I'll just do a motion if you're ready for that, Mayor Daly. No further, nobody else wants to say. I move, be it resolved that council conducted the annual evaluation of the Town of Olds Chief Administration Officer in May of 2026 in accordance with the section 205.1 of the Municipal Government Act, and further that council approve the 2025-2026 performance evaluation for Mr. Brent Williams, CAO.
Thank you, Councillor Overwater. Any last comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Move on to 6.5, Economic Development Strategy. And turn it over to CEO Williams for introduction.
Thank you once again. And similar to the previous, this was presented most recently at the June's Committee of the Whole after several months of engagement and studies finalizing the strategy. It's, I believe, the town's first economic development strategy. It has been designed to be a bit more visually appealing than what was before you last week, but outside of that, it mirrors what you saw and discussed last Monday. But happy to take more questions or comments on it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, Council? Councillor Krush?
Beautiful document. I think everyone should read it. I sent it to my mother for some light reading. I just wanted to ask you a question. 620 new housing units. We're building housing at a much faster clip than in the past 5 years, which was almost zero. Where are we at that, for that goal at this point in time with this strategy? Or is this like above and beyond what's been built in the last year?
Yeah, good question. And through the chair, probably, hopefully by July, but it may be pushed to August. I'll present to council a one-year report on the housing strategy, which that's where this figure comes from. The housing strategy does, and speaking to this, it does start from 2024 to 2030, I believe. That's 640 unit target. Officially, we're at 260 new units brought into market since 2024. I believe 2026 will be a similar number, maybe a bit less, and then 2027 will be probably a record year. So we're very confident that we will meet the 640 unit numbers in the next 5 years, technically the next 3 years. The bigger challenge, I think, is the diversity in the housing stock. We see very strong purpose-built rentals, obviously, with one building just finished constructed, one about halfway through construction. Some recent land use bylaw applications, as you've just seen, I think is bringing some exciting proposals into that missing middle housing. And we hope those will reach development phase, should council and the subsequent developer and the stars align. But housing is going very well for the town of Olds compared to where we were, probably in the last decade. And I believe there is a tentative plan in the housing strategy to conduct a census, a municipal census, in between the 2026 federal census and the 2031 federal census, as population growth is also tied to a lot of grant dollars with the province as well. So overall, it's going well, and I think we will easily reach our 630 new housing targets by 2030.
Supplemental?
On the rental buildings, the building over here, I can't remember the name of it. Do you know if that has reached, are they fully, is there any vacancies left? Or have they filled that building yet? Or are there vacancies still left in that building?
I haven't spoken to them directly recently. I have heard anecdotally that there were 10 or 11 apartments left out of the 92. That was about a month ago, mostly in the studio bedroom model. But speaking with that builder, they were very impressed with the speed at which they reached absorption compared to the other communities in Alberta in which they build. So it's good progress.
Good, thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to the CAO. I believe the town and the developers have accomplished the housing without any, and I don't know what the term is, housing accelerator funds or grant funds or incentive funds, either provincially or federally. Are those dollars still available? And if they are, does the town or the developers have avenues to continue to apply to access some of those funds to unlock development? Thank you.
Through the chair, that's correct. The town has applied for several housing accelerator grants and other CMHC-led programs. We're never successful for those. They do disadvantage rural areas where both growth is limited compared to urban centers, but also data is limited. We don't have the same treatment through the StatsCan census process, let's say Cochrane or Airdrie has, so we can prove our business case as well as those communities can. So we never had any grant dollars to accomplish what we've been able to accomplish. The developer side also has the financing through CMHC, which is called, generally used MLI Select. And I have not come across a developer who is successful in obtaining the CMHC financing either to date. I haven't asked everyone, obviously, but similar to the issues we've seen not qualifying for the grant components of CMHC, MLI Select, in my opinion, disadvantages rural communities because the thresholds to prove risk tolerance and what's required in terms of down payments or shareholder equity is significantly higher than in communities where you can prove higher absorption rates or higher demand, which we have a tough time proving. So this was done through the work of staff and working with developers who took a chance on Olds.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? I just have one that as we present this here today, this has been presented to a number of our other local organizations and groups within the town. And what kind of feedback have we got from our presentations with those other groups? The service groups, the college, the Chamber of Commerce, and so forth.
I think that Chamber and Uptown, they had good discussion when we presented in person. We didn't have official feedback, as I mentioned last week, from them, but I believe there is similar wants or expectations from those groups. Uptown Olds is a key driver, especially for the Uptown Association, and that we call it revitalization plan is included here as a key action item. Then population growth is also, I believe, agreed upon, just because population growth drives business activity, and most of the business representatives in the Chamber and Uptown are commercial and retail businesses. On the college piece, they, very helpful, take a different track. Their focus is more on aligning what we already do and what we perhaps can do. So from our side, we pushed more the industrial agricultural piece, which I think we have worked on sporadically with the college, and we're trying to get more deliberate on that, and very well received. On the college's front, they see the what's good for the town is going to be good for the college, and vice versa. So trying to push to market ourselves as a college town and making it more college student friendly and having that housing available. Obviously, closer to the college is better, but anywhere's in town, it's accessible to a large degree compared to other universities and colleges in larger centers. And then even through these conversations, we had some small wins too, that we signed an MOU with the college. I believe I mentioned this last week for the arborist training side of their curriculum. They'll be joining forces with our horticulture lead here, I believe in the fall, to work on some tree projects. The Broncos athletics program, their council will be updated soon once I have more information, but we're hoping to switch their soccer program fully to Rotary Park from their current location at the fields behind the high school. So incremental improvements, but the college, I would say we were on the same page in trying to make our economic relationship more deliberate, and to date it has been quite healthy, but just very sporadic and not strategic. So, but to your question, I think the feedback has been relatively minimal, but helpful from all the groups that we have conversed with over the last 6 months or so, and then going back a couple of years, the few hundred businesses as well.
No, good. Thank you very much for that. Any further questions or comments? All right, I'll be looking for a motion. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and I move that council approve the Economic Development Strategy 2026 to 2031 as presented.
Thank you. Any last comments or questions? All right, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Moves us down to 6.6, sponsorship request, Mount View Housing. Over to CAO Williams for introduction.
Thank you for this. This is an RFD that comes to council every year, since I've been here at least, for the Seniors Housing Annual Golf Classic. It's held, I believe, usually in Carstairs in August. So we generally have around the $2,000 contribution to sponsor and then to send a team. I noticed that the RFD recommendation does have blank spaces to name the 4 golfers, but if you don't want to determine that today, just happy to have an amendment to that recommendation to say, allow 4 golfers to attend, and we can sort it out later. But I guess the first question is if council wishes to participate again.
Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. To CAO Williams, is there someone there? I like the cart myself.
I think you're as long as people are willing to get up close and personal, yeah, 3 to a cart or yeah.
So other than the 5th spot for driver on the team, is there any other questions or comments?
Mayor Daley, who wants to golf? Like, why don't we just find out who wants to golf?
Well, I have to look up, everybody has to look at their calendars and stuff. We can figure that out later. Yep, for sure. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Kirsch.
Do you know where we are with our fund for this type of thing at the moment? How far along we are in exhausting that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe it's in the financial considerations. The remaining balance, if this is approved, will be $1,050. And then council also has a more ECDEV focused sponsorship budget in Mountain View Power as well. I believe that one is closer to $3,000 or $4,000 remaining, but I'd have to check for sure.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions? All right, I'll ask for a motion then. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daley. I move that a one-time donation of $2,000 coming from Council's general sponsorship be approved for the 2026 Mountain View Seniors Housing Annual Golf Classic.
And to include,
And to include a list of 4 golfers to be determined at a later date.
perfect, yep, good. Dope. Any further questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you very much. 6.7, development permit, PRMO 26-0059. CAO Williams for introduction.
I see only the Gen X counselor giggled at that, so I'll just leave that there. So, Nathan Hill is to my right. He's here to present the next 2 items. Mr. Hill.
Excellent. Thank you very much. As mentioned, I have 2 permits here for you this afternoon. The first of which is for a coop and a run for a backyard hens approval at 8 Birch Close in the manufactured home district. A manufactured home district is the only residential district where the backyard hens are council discretionary use. The reason we configured it that way is by and large our manufactured homes are in a parks heading where more oversight is necessary because of the proximity of manufactured homes. This application is in the Birch area where parcels are freehold and there's more separation. The applicant will have to apply separately for an animal license for any hens within the coop. This application is for a coop only. We circulated to 15 adjacent landowners. We received no comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hill. Any questions or comments? Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to Mr. Hill. Okay, so I see that you did to 15 adjacent landowners, but as you've mentioned, he will have these individuals will have to come back and apply then for a license for their hens. Will this application have to be then recirculated to those 15 adjacent landowners? And if there's opposition to then I guess it comes back to council automatically, does it not?
The hens are administered by the animal bylaw, which is under municipal enforcement. So I'm not certain what the process is. So I don't want to give council incorrect information inadvertently.
No, I actually, now that you mentioned that, I should have remembered that. Actually, I think they're allowed to have up to 6 chickens. So I think if they stay within those parameters, I don't know that it would have to come back necessarily. I was just thinking, why would they go to 2 different steps if it had to come back a second time? There could be opposition, but most people would automatically assume they're probably just going to get the chickens and run with it.
Oh, listen to that. All right, thanks for the humor, Councillor Blatz. Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to Nathan. Just, and again, maybe a question better directed in the future towards municipal enforcement, but we've had the hen or the chicken bylaw for some time now. Just as a general comment, is it working and working well? Have we had any nuisance complaints that you're aware of? I'm just curious overall, how's the program working? Thank you.
Yeah, I know during my time here, we've approved 1 other backyard hen. So like the uptake's not been huge in my time here, and I've not heard of any complaints.
Good, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Kirsch.
I'm not too familiar with the, oh, sorry, through you to Director or Mr. Hill. I'm not too familiar with the hen bylaw, but there's a provision in there for roosters, right? There, so you, like, there's no rooster. I had a neighbor with hens and it was fine until they had a rooster. And then at 4:30 every morning, that thing was up on top of its cage, cawing away, and just a question.
Thank you, and through the chair, I have the animal bylaw open in front of me, and roosters are prohibited.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Blatz.
I'll make a motion if there's no further questions. Okay. I move that council approve development permit PRMO 2026-0059, subject to the conditions listed in the outlined and attached document.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. All right, moves down to 6.8, development permit PRMO 2026-0073. Mr. Hill.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'll keep this one short and sweet. This applications for a short-term rental at 11 Violet Close in the RTD district. The subject parcel is a semi-detached dwelling, and so it's not a single detached. Beyond that, we circulated to 12 adjacent landowners, and I received no comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Any questions from council? Councillor Kirsch.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to either CAO or Mr. Hill. With these short-term rentals, is there recourse for a neighbor who, after the fact, it might become disturbing if, this person's getting a lot of Airbnb rentals and they're throwing a party, or if this becomes an ongoing issue, is there recourse for a neighbor to have the permit pulled after the fact? Thank you.
There is, and so in the attached conditions, condition 2 states that this permit's valid for a 5-year period, and if short-term rentals not conducive to the area, we wouldn't approve it again. Also, condition 3 states that it can't infringe on the quiet enjoyment of nearby parcels, and I can enforce based on that. Enforcement to that can be a little bit difficult, but I can if the situation warrants it.
Good, thank you for that. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to the development officer. Just do we have a sense how prevalent these short-term rentals are? This is the first I can recall, well, second maybe, coming before council in recent memory for approval, but is there, I don't know what the word is, the underground market or the black market for these short-term rentals? And do we have an idea on how prevalent that is? Thank you.
I don't believe there's a whole ton. We were aware of 1 or 2 before we began regulating these. And they would be allowed to continue as a pre-existed regulations. That being said, like if I had to guess, I'd say there's probably 5 or 6 in town. Like I don't think there's very many.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, need somebody to make a motion? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I make the motion that council approve development permit PRMO 2026-0073, subject to the conditions outlined in the attached document.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Moves us into section 7, which is correspondence and information. To get down here. So we have a number of different correspondence coming into us. Any comments or questions on any of these? Okay. So I would like a motion then, please. Oh, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move the correspondence and information report ending June 8th, 2026 be received for information.
Thank you for that. Last chance for comments or questions. All in favor? Oh, Councillor Overwater.
Well, I'm not sure, thank you, Mayor Daley. I'm not sure where I should talk about this. The community services, the Seniors Week. I'd like to just say that I think they had great turnout for all of the seniors' activities, the breakfasts, last night there were 60 people on the bus going into Calgary for the Stage West and all the seniors there, myself included. We thoroughly enjoyed that, and Heather Dixon and Trina from Community Connections were wonderful ambassadors to organize everything throughout Seniors Week, and I heard nothing but comments. I'm not really sure where that statement's supposed to be, but I just thought I would add that in there, and congratulations to the town staff for helping everybody out with Seniors Week. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah. That was a perfect place for it.
Thank you.
Councillor Blatz, were you going to make a motion? You did. Sorry. Yeah, we're voting now. Yeah. Okay, all those in favor? All right, that is carried. Thank you very much. It just got emotional there with Councillor Overwaters. The scene, yeah. All right, so that takes us down to the Chief Administrative Officer report, and I'll turn it over to Brent. Oh, sorry, CAO Williams.
That's better. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. So the only included items in the agenda package for my report is the monthly reporter problem summary chart, which, as you see, there were 53 reporter problems received, down month to month from last month and also year over year. So a quieter May than we were anticipating. And as you can see, roads and sidewalks, trees are starting to creep up, and then meters as we have started phase 3 of our water meter replacement program. People either calling us to ask some questions on the letters they received from the contractor, or to inquire what the program is about. On the verbal side of my report, I'll give a update on our statement of intent to participate, which we submitted last week to the AUC as participants now in the Synapse application that's before the commission. It wasn't attached to the package that went out on Friday, but it is included in the agenda package now and will be included on our in the agenda package that's posted to the website. But it has been on our website since last week. So basically, the statement of intent to participate, the town's position in the Synapse project as directed by council, that we support the project in principle under the guise that there are outstanding concerns that we believe need to be heard, adjudicated, and assessed, and ultimate direction given by the commission and potentially other provincial agencies like Alberta Environment before the project should proceed. We started with a clarification on municipal zoning as section 3 of the SIP, and that's because asked directly through an request the status of municipal zoning. And that information request, I should clarify as well, that came from the AUC, they largely base that on what they're hearing through the statement of intent to participate, which I believe at the time of last week, there was around 1,200 SIPs submitted. And I've heard around 700 SIPs or so locally. So we're going to try to collate that data as best we can for council and present that separately at a future meeting. The issues we're bringing up, there's a multitude based on what we'd like the AUC to consider. I would say the primary issues remain around the emergency generators proposed for the Synapse site and the noise and emissions that come from some of the models that they produce in the reports there. And we had two separate third-party peer reviews of the noise impact assessment done by the developer and another peer review done by a third party for the developer's air quality assessment. Councillor Taylor and I think Mayor Daley, you asked me about sharing those publicly. Those have now been posted to our website and I have sent them to the AUC as well. We were waiting on permission from those engineering firms to send those documents as those do have a confidentiality disclaimer. So, but those are publicly available for anyone who wishes to look at those. But as was mentioned in our SIP, pointing out the developer's own documents that there's further noise impact assessments required to determine the ability to meet certain thresholds. And for the air quality assessment, we need to understand or better adjudicate the generator running, generator uptime thresholds as well, as some of the models put them outside of acceptable standards. The other things that were in there, things like community benefit program, our emergency management plan, some things around dust and weeds, that's more for construction management, but certainly a municipal issue, landscaping and road use, construction reporting to the public, reclamation security, property valuations, waste management, things that we know the AUC doesn't have full jurisdiction on, but neither do we in a lot of sense. So we feel the commission should at least adjudicate it. Things that weren't in there, of course, things like water use wasn't included because we feel we have a basic understanding of both the project and then our own systems capacity and the regional systems capacity. And things like AI use in general, the dangers of what AI may pose to society or humanity. I felt that wasn't in our realm to assess or to ask or for AUC to speculate on. Outside of that, we look forward to continuing the AUC's process. We still have not received a development permit application from the Synapse project. But once that happens, if that happens, obviously a totally separate process will take place. Some of the issues will overlap in there and some new ones as well. But just for information's sake, I know council was involved in creating this and we've had many discussions on the project, but happy to take anything you may have right now on this topic or anything else CAO related, I guess.
Thank you. Councilor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to CO Williams. So with this, the AUC regulations, then when they do make a ruling, then whatever regulations, if they approve this, and that is if they approve this, then we abide by those regulations, and will they recognize our questions and concerns and build those into the regulations? Or is this just something they will clarify for us?
And through the chair, so if they accept our concerns as, I don't want to say legitimate, but within their jurisdiction, and they accept our suggestions, they will issue what's called a order of commitment. I believe it's a word like that. A developer commitment that must be fulfilled when the project is under construction or by the time it's operational. They can also say this is really not our jurisdiction, and a lot of things aren't with data centers. So I can also see them just saying, thank you for the input. We're not saying it's good or bad. We're just saying it's not our jurisdiction. So that obviously won't come till the final decision date, I believe. But
Okay, good. Counselor Krush.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to CA Williams. This question is not SIP related, it is water related. We just had a deluge of water over the last couple of weeks. Did the town see any significant problems? If so, have those been ratified, and are there steps that can be taken for the next torrential rainfall that we see? I had some problems of my own, so I can't imagine I'm the only one.
Very apt question. And through the chair, it certainly wasn't as bad as other years where we saw that amount of rainfall. It was about over 100 millimeters in 48 hours, give or take. We saw significant elevations at the regional lift station where we had to take some action there, but we didn't have to discharge into Jason Fields, which happened, I think, 6 times in 2022 and 2023. So that's great, but certainly the inflows and infiltration that we've seen, I think, if I'm guessing, by millimeter 80 to millimeter 90 in that storm, it shows that there are still significant sanitary problems in town that we need to continue to rectify. So even though our percentage month to month is generally falling for I&I and for water loss as well, it doesn't account for those massive rainstorms because we only see a rainfall event of that size every 2 or 3 years. But our sanitary relining programs and our manholes and mains need to continue, as do our investigations. And Director Pedro's team has, what number of sanitary repair are you at so far this year? Or 19, so we're probably well over 30, probably by year's end. It's certainly a lot of work left to do, but substantial progress has been made to prevent that.
Supplemental?
Not having to pump into the field, do you think that's directly related to the work that has been done to repair some of our broken pipes?
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to CAO Williams. Switching gears again, this is for a reporter problem. For the residents who do submit a problem and they request either a callback or an email back, does administration respond to everybody, or do they only respond to the people who they do actively go out and fix or amend the problem that was reported?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, we do try to get back to everyone. Obviously, it sends an automatic reply, which is not quite the what people are looking for. People who request a call back, most people are getting that. I can't say everyone is getting that. I'll lean on Director Pedro a bit impromptu here because I know that Abby is always our lead on that for most REP issues. But have you seen a circle follow-up being complete there?
Hopefully this one will work. Oh, perfect. No, appreciate the question. So with the reporter problem, the user does have the ability to select whether they want a call back or an email back. If they don't select, if they just leave that field as no contact, then we won't reach out to them. We only reach out if they do select that they want an email or a phone call back. So it really depends on the resident submitting.
And if they do request for it, is it 100% reach that we're getting back to those people that request that, or is it less than that?
Should be close to 100%. I do monitor that personally, and we have a pretty good system in place where, as soon as, assuming that the resident had selected some sort of receipt of acknowledgement or follow-up, we do have a standard set of responses that we issue to that person. If they don't request it, then we don't have that follow-up. Not saying that there isn't maybe a few that fall through the cracks, but the procedure is that all of them would be responded to.
Okay, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you, going back to a little bit of our water meters and a little bit of the synopsis AUC filing. With our water meters, we're seeing significant findings in leak detection. I know I spoke to another community who's using the exact same company, and they have found to date, out of 1,600 meters that they have installed, 30 plus leak detections that they have noted. So one of the comments yesterday that was on social media was to the fact that, it alluded to the fact that Synapsis will be using anywhere between 60,000 to 80,000 liters of water a day, which works out to be 60 or 80 cubic meters. Overall, that's significantly less than what we saw Sundial use. I guess going back to the rain event and knowing that we're going to, part of the problem was because we're going to go start with the third phase of installing these meters, and there's concerns being raised. Is that some way that we can ensure people or reassure people that that is for leak detection only, and that there's no other purpose for the, I mean, part of it is too because they are a better meter and their lifespan is better. But is that something that we can keep promoting, or how do we keep promoting it, or what are we doing to promote it? Because that kind of information is somewhat misleading, because it makes it sound like there's a horrendous amount of water being used at 60,000 liters a day, but yet, you know, there was no correlation between installing these water meters. They are strictly for leak detection, not because we were approached in December of 2025 by a company that would potentially be using some of our water, if that roundabout way you're asking a question.
Okay, through the chair, I think I catch what you're throwing. So with the water meter communication, yeah, because we did this pilot program, I believe in 2023, we started it. So we've been dealing with this meter for 3 years now, and we're in phase 3. We have 1,500 meters installed. So we have, you know, our website, and we have individual communications with people in each of the phases, and we'll continue to advertise to address those concerns. And right now, everything's coming up data center like related. If people don't like something, they tend to blame it on the data center. It's just the topic du jour. So it's tough to put water meters in there rationally for me, I guess, off the hop. But water use is always a fair point. And I did mention in my SIP introduction a moment ago, we didn't include that in our AUC filing because it's not that big of a concern. And I can give you some stats, like, you know, so yeah, Synapse proposal, upwards of 80,000 liters a day, or 80 cubes. For that perspective, the town currently uses about 2.7 million liters a day, give or take. So this is less than 3%. Olds College uses substantially more than 80,000 liters a day on average, for example. Sundial used upwards double that amount, I believe, pretty close to double that amount when in operation. So we have 2 reservoirs, and I believe, speaking in gallons at least, because that's what I remember Adrian telling me, combined they're about 2.5 million gallons of capacity. The Water Commission is in really good shape with their regional capacity, using less than half of their plant's daily distribution volume. And even with the loss of Sundial and other related properties, the downsizing of the cannabis industry, combined with our loss prevention program, we use less water now than we did in 2019, for example. In 2019, a month, we're averaging about 107,000 cubic meters of water used per month. In 2025, we averaged 84,000 cubic meters per month. So if you were to ask me, like, how much water can we afford to use? I'd say, I mean, at the very minimal, we could return to 2019 numbers and add a third to our capacity, but there's substantially more water capacity available both in our local system and in the regional system. So it's, again, I understand you look on social media from the American example, and water use is one of the primary concerns, but I believe the government of Alberta has done a pretty good job in how they're regulating or trying to attract data centers, and how our regulatory system across the board is set up, particularly with water, that I just don't see an issue that we can't accommodate right now. So.
Yes, thank you for that, because I know the Water Commission too has not seen any they don't see any issues, and they've been contacted by a few of our residents asking those types of questions and have responded as such. So, and they also reiterated that they would work closely with us as a municipality, as we would with them if we needed to up our usage. We would certainly give the Water Commission enough notification that we are going to potentially increase our usage, and if this was one of those situations, we would include it. But I don't believe that it's either much of an issue.
Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the CEO, just a short snapper question, a yes or no answer. So at the community open house a couple of weeks ago, Kim McNabb of the AUC indicated that parties withstanding are eligible for some degree of compensation through their efforts with the AUC, and that includes municipalities. I know we're very early in the process. We've had peer reviews done. Are we considering supplemental or further third-party reviews of any of this, anything related to Synapse and their project proposal? Thank you.
Thanks for the question through the chair. Right, so the AUC does allow cost recovery even for municipalities. In my conversations with the AUC, municipalities don't often get reimbursed through those means. So not that we won't pursue them, decision yet to be made. But we also have our development permit process as well that should that reopen, we have cost recovery ability on top of our development permit fees, which are, you know, for industrial projects of this size already substantial, that we can charge back the costs of things like peer reviews for noise and air quality assessments, for some legal opinions, things like that, which we intend to exercise. Regarding your question for further third-party reviews, I would say probably on the noise side, which we did the air quality assessment, even though it's not in our jurisdiction, just to help us better understand the process so we could better participate in the AUC process and, you know, me answer your questions, you answer citizens' questions. The noise piece is a very much overlapping function, so I can see us requesting more third-party support when and if those noise impact assessments are updated by the proponent, just to see how well they're covering the basis, as the initial NIA does show some gaps.
Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I'm really trying to form this correctly. So on a lot of social media, people are talking about droughts that we've had and water restrictions, and I'm not really sure the town of Olds has really had a lot of water restrictions in the past. Our license is quite, I mean, our license allottage for water is quite a bit. So is that something that, you know, anybody should be concerned with? About having a shortage, a drought, and then I know humans first, animals, and then if it would be the data center. But I mean, people are really going on about the water, and you know, we've been in droughts, and they're really going on about that. Is that a concern for us, really, in the town of Olds? Am I asking the question right?
Yeah, I catch what you're throwing, and through the chair. It's not that drought is not a concern, because it has been here the last, you know, periodically. For the town in this region in particular, the Red Deer River water basin, which we're within in the watershed, it's the healthiest in terms of subscribership. I believe just over half of the total allocations subscribed to. And the commission has 9 million cubic meters, I believe, per year of water allocated to it. It's using around 4.5 million cubic meters, so there's lots of capacity. We haven't seen the same level of drought worry. I think it was 2 years ago now when there was a lot of warning, and we ended up getting a really significant snowfall, I believe, in April, and then subsequent rain events in May that limited that. But the Bow and the Oldman River basins, they seem to have a much different situation with water availability than we do here in the Red Deer watershed. So I haven't seen it being a huge issue. The province can change that, though, as they talk about things like interbasin transfers, which is a fairly complicated subject I'm not I'm not well versed on to give you an explanation of that. So provincial policy would probably be a bigger risk, I would say. But that's like the weather and climate are unpredictable at best. But it's something we haven't seen here, and we've seen the resilience. Further to that too, there's planning ongoing for the Red Deer watershed. The Ardley Dam Reservoir feasibility study has been underway for over a year now, almost 2 years, studying building a second reservoir on the Red Deer River. First one is obviously Glenifer Lake, Dixon Dam. So hopefully that does get some traction, gets approved, and we see in the next decade kind of more capacity added. And then our commission themselves, they received, I think, $6.7 million this year to expand their stormwater management and water treatment capacity and safety. So that's going to provide them with more ability to manage high flows and keep those high flows. So we're in a good spot, I think, with water-wise, but I never want to say drought's not an issue. It's just very difficult to predict, but we're in a better situation than most are.
Thank you. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and I can kind of elaborate a little further on that comment. The last meeting that I attended, I think that we have at the Anthony Henn Day, we have about a $30,000 or 30,000 cube limit per day, and we're only using about 12,000. And that's coming down to 5 different communities. And the other thing too is we have a very strict drought and conservation policy at the commission. And if we do have to go into any kind of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 restrictions, then industry is probably the last that will get water at all. So you know, I think people need to know that is already in place. But I do have another question or comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Going back to report a problem, C.O. Williams, I did get a couple of concerns, of course, about mowing, as we seem to be not, getting to it as quickly as people would like us to. Have we started mowing in the areas that are, in behind the residential areas, like behind 58th Avenue Close and in behind Duncan and places such as that? Have we started that process yet, or will we be in the next week or two?
Through the chair, we have started mowing. I doubt we're in those lower priority areas yet, focusing on mainly boulevards and sports fields. But I think within the next week or two, certainly we'd be starting to hit all the areas of town. Last week we had quite a saturation event, so I think we got out late Friday for the first time.
Well, yeah, and granted, we did have an awful lot of rain. I believe those areas were once every 3 weeks anyway, so as part of our naturalization no-mow strategy. But I wanted to ask that question because it's been asked of me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further questions or comments? All right. I will ask for a motion then, please. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and I move that the Chief Administrative Officer's report be accepted for information.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? See none. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Takes us down to item now, closed session. Can I get a motion to go into closed session, please? Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move that we go into closed session. Council goes into closed session in accordance to Section 197 of the Municipal Government Act at, 3:44 p.m. To discuss matters exempt from disclosure under ATIA Sections 19 and 26.
Okay. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. So when council goes into closed session for continued participation in a virtual council meeting, stay online in the live stream meeting platform, and the meeting stream will be replaced with a graphic. When the graphics are removed, that will indicate that the meeting is ready to reconvene. So let's just take a 5-minute recess, and we'll reconvene in closed session. So back at 3:49. Okay, welcome back. Motion has been made by Councillor Blatz to come out of closed session at 4:52. And so now we'll move on to rise and report. And who would like to do item 1? Councillor Krish.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move that item number 1, ATIA Section 19, disclosure harmful to business interest of a third-party development, be accepted for information.
Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And item number 2? Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move that item number 2, ATIA Section 26, disclosure harmful to intermunicipal relations, the ICC update, be accepted for information.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. All those in favor? That is carried as well. That brings us to item number 11, adjournment. I adjourn the meeting at 4:54. And thank you to all those online that stuck out till the end here to hear our Rise report. Have a great day, everyone.